So as you've just seen there, the suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule and 15 other co-accused appearing in the High Court in Bloemfontein in connection with that 255 million asbestos tender. New developments that emerged today that Magashule's former personal assistant will now be an accused in the case after not cooperating with the state. Moroadi Cholota is now a suspect in the asbestos case, and the prosecutor told the court he has signed an arrest warrant for her. When we last checked, the ANC was barely holding on to 50% overall support in the province of the Free State in the local government elections. And we're joined now by Professor Sethugelo Matebisi, who's at the Results Operations Center in Bloemfontein, to talk about what's happened inside the courthouse and outside. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's just start with Ace Magashule and his lawyer have consistently held on to the fact that the former PA was not going to be a state witness and that there was no compelling evidence against him from that end. What are your thoughts about these developments, the optics of it? Does it vindicate him, so to speak?
Yeah, good evening, and good evening to the viewers. It's quite a very interesting turnout today in the court because very importantly during the previous court appearance, Tate Magashule also mentioned the issue of political witch hunt and that the MPA does not have a case, and it's quite shocking yet once again where it seems as if we've got a huge problem with our justice systems, because remember, for the African National Congress, with each court appearance of a senior party leader, it does affect the party, and the question is, all these postponements will have a detrimental impact on the African National Congress. And I think, yes, the argument that have been advanced by the legal team of the suspended Secretary General, it's definitely to try and make a case out of the so-called key witness of the state, and to say that that particular individual will not become a state witness.
The prosecutorial strength of the NPA has often come under scrutiny here in South Africa. Lawrence Heards, the SC for Magashule, has raised questions about Cholota, claiming that the statement provided by Cholota, provided in the docket, was not signed. Does this lend credence to those assertions? You speak about untoward happenings around this in these charges, and the fact that the suspended Secretary General has consistently said, and he repeated that today, that he wants his time in the box because there are things that people must know about his party and what's really going on within it.
Yes, with all due respect, we're talking about a senior party member, talking about political infighting, and the question is, that is a narrative that South Africans should not advance, and they should not buy that, because if there's political infighting, that political infighting should happen at another place. It's either at Luthuli House, but definitely not in our courts of law, because every South African having an opportunity to prove his innocence. But I do understand the frustration that the defense team has, because it's also unacceptable to keep on postponing cases of this nature. But at the end of the day, I do not buy this narrative that there is a political witch hunt, because then the question is, who are the ones who are advancing this fight against the suspended ANC Secretary General? And the Secretary General also had an opportunity to open cases against people that he perhaps think that they are perhaps attacking him unnecessarily. And this is a message that perhaps we should send to South Africans, to say that we do have a capable justice system, and everyone in South Africa have to respect the rule of law.
So let's talk about the various arms of the law or of the state and how they are mired into this. For instance, just in terms of what has come out, for instance, it's been said that two of the accused have pretty much found themselves there at the trial. They've raised a fundamental objection, saying they were forced to testify at the state capture inquiry, and this is the reason why they fight themselves there. So the bid to fight corruption and it be mired in politics, does that mean that the instruments that the state has to fight corruption have now been blunted, stunted even?
No, well, for me it will be a sad moment in the history of South Africa where the state is using such a critical case and is trying to manipulate people. And I don't say this perhaps happened because, look, these are serious allegations, but the problem that we have in our country is that from our youth, and even if you look at what happens now with the elections, South Africans are often quick and they expose themselves to be exploited. I don't understand it. There might be undue pressure on people to go and testify, but they, by nature of involving themselves in that, means that they themselves are also committing a crime, because then the question is, if they've got credible evidence, then let them go to court and then go and reveal whatever evidence they have. But this whole narrative of them being forced to act as witnesses, I really don't buy that. But it is these people also that once again attacks our democracy, and these are the people that I think we should actually identify and actually should be taken against them.
Okay, so let's continue with that conjecture of what happens in the criminal justice system and what happens in the political court, so to speak. Magashule himself saying today that he admired former President Jacob Zuma for continuing to preach support for the ANC in these elections, but he has, in the same breath, be mobilizing towards the 2022 elective Congress. So, and I'm just wondering, would a pro-Zuma and Magashule supporters have heeded the call to stand by the ANC in this election, or would they have been confounded on what to do, seeing the results that we see in the ANC? All I'm saying is that it doesn't ring hollow to everyone, that it must have found its mark in some of those in the electorate, that there really is a legitimate claim.
No, we're talking about a highly divided organization. The African National Congress, when it comes to national events, are united. But the moment when these issues, events such as elections are over, they go back to the scams. But I have heard the suspended secretary indicating on several occasions that his supporters should go out and continue to vote for the African National Congress because they are still members of the ANC, and I do understand why they would want to do that. But remember, and this is something that I'm going to emphasize over and over, we are talking about an individual who potentially can become the president of the country, and there's a huge possibility that in future Ntate Magashule can become the president of the ANC. So obviously behind the scenes, both from the Cyril Ramaphosa camp and from the so-called radical economic transformation, there are behind the scenes strategies to see how are they going to move and win the next general elections.
There's strategies and there's the tactile moves between the fractured parties. But then there's the real issues, the service delivery issues, and they too are related to this case. 255 million rand for the Free State asbestos roofing removal. That tender is what has brought us here. So I'm just wondering, just looking at the performance of independents and other parties, can they fix these problems with an empty state coffer, or does it still remain an issue of individuals, the big principles that we've seen within the ANC, them fighting for power?
No, South Africa is a very resilient country. We should never get tired to continuously work on our democracy. We've got a large number of independent candidates, and that is also just an indication of how vibrant our democracy is. I don't think in as much as our municipalities are dysfunctional, but we still have an opportunity to rectify most of our municipalities. And by the way, there are many municipalities that are functioning quite well, and the question is perhaps we should try and emulate those municipalities where we know that there's pockets of excellence. And the problem is, well, I've heard that some political parties have mentioned that perhaps this was a wake-up call, but the problem is as soon as we pack up our cameras and leave this venue, the problem will continue.
Exactly.
But we just hope that it has been a lesson for South Africans, and perhaps the issues that will get attention will be service delivery and nothing else, especially at local government level.
Thank you so much for your time and insights, Professor Sethugelo Matebisi from the University of the Free State, unpacking for us what was happening inside the court in the Free State where Ace Magashule was appearing, and of course what's happened that spilled out to the various municipalities.